Hey everyone, welcome back to the Closure House. I'm Jessica, and this is where we talk about the hard stuff, the relationships we had to walk away from, the ones we couldn't, and what healing really looks like when closure doesn't come the way we hoped. So today we're sitting down with Arlene, and her story is about growing up in a home where love wasn't really shown and where a lot of feelings got pushed down or left unspoken. Arlene's here to share what it's been like to untangle all of that and to figure out her own healing in the middle of it. So, Arlene, thank you for coming today and sharing your story with us. Tell us about this no contact, but continuing contact that happened.
Oh, it's a very long story. I actually never went no contact with my mom. She did it first in the natural order. She suffered from cancer, and died almost a year ago. But everything leading up to it, um, I was advised well over 10 years ago when I was in active duty to go no contact with my mother. And of course, that doesn't happen when you're separated from the military. You go to your home on record. And of course, that's where she's at in that time space.
Mhm.
So I didn't have a prayer to really get away from her. We were like oil and water. We just did not mix. I locked horns with my mother for the last 10 years over petty stuff, but it is what it is. Um, Last year she started to get really bad. We weren't really sure why.
Mhm.
A lot of it had to do with her being very ill. But because she wouldn't go to the doctor and follow up, this was her second round of cancer we didn't know she had. It By the time we found it, it was too late. And she had 6 weeks and then she was gone. But in that 6 weeks alone, it was just basically a rehash of my greatest hits as a child. Um,
Yeah.
and As far as the no contact, I have learned over the last 8 months that no contact is not an unfamiliar story in my family, as one of her last remaining siblings went low contact as early as the 80s
Whoa.
from her parents because of my mom's involvement. So it's quite a big nest and web of stuff I've been going through for the
Yeah.
last year
Yeah, I wanted
from
to
now.
know about like you were mentioning a sibling and like what it meant for like a major thing that happened with the sibling in your life. Can you tell us how that shaped you and maybe what happened?
So I was number two as the children go. My brother was born 4 years. We were the spooks. He was born in October. I was born in September. He was born with anencephaly, and he was also an epileptic spastic quadriplegic. He was 24/7 care. Um, I was about 4, 5 years old, somewhere in there. And we as a family, my mother, my father, me, and my brother, were going to where eventually he was surrendered. A lady took him in because he was too much of a medical burden on my mom.
Oh, mm-hmm,
And my father was not allowed to care for us. She had him working double, triple shifts, and this man has a lot of health issues
mm-hmm,
to begin with. And then she always touted for decades about how she had this child that, oh my goodness, poor me, pity me, oh my goodness. But she literally surrendered him. I found the paperwork that suggested that either she surrendered him or both of us were going to be taken by the state because of the neglect.
mm-hmm,
And that I understand. He was a handful. He really was. He never spoke. He was deaf and blind, as per the state, but he never was above the age of 1 in his mind.
uh-huh.
And he was my senior. He was older than I was. So to have a child like that is very difficult. I understand that. But even my grandmother was like, no, you didn't. No, it wasn't some good Samaritan. You dumped him on her. And she did. It took her about 8 years before she finally legally adopted him.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she had a different
Mhm.
story about what happened?
Mhm. I was
Mhm.
raised to believe that um, this woman was in the system helping out with the caregiving, and she fell in love with Mark and she wanted to take him. And that's the meat and potatoes of it. And I was never to ask questions, which is fine. Okay. But if you're going to lie to me, at least tell me the truth later, not when
Yeah.
I'm going through your closet.
Yeah, that's a lot to have to take in and unpack, and especially if you have your whole life believing one thing and then you find out that it's not true at all. So how did it impact you knowing that everything you were told is not true?
As I have mentioned earlier, the last 8 months for sure have been a roller coaster. I found a letter that my father wrote to my brother. He was maybe about, I want to say 4 or 5 years old at the time. I would have been about one, maybe two. And my father had written, someday you'll understand how to love your bullheaded mother. She's got the purest heart, but she's really hard to understand. And I hope someday you will understand how to love your mother as I have. And that was in my brother's baby book.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, she sounds like she was just very challenging because there were so many facets of like who she was, and they don't
Hmm.
always sound congruent. Like she was really, you know, grief stricken and everything about him being gone. In reality, he didn't leave on those circumstances and what she said.
No, the night that we took him to the ladies,
Mhm,
I'll call her Dee Dee. Um, I remember I asked, like, "Oh, when were we going to go get Bubba?" I'm like 4 or 5 years old. And I remember my mother was driving and she turned and she looked at me and she's like, "Don't ask questions about him. You never had a brother."
wow. So what was it like growing up in a house where your brother's existence was pretty much erased?
It was quite tumultuous, honestly, because a few months after that, my father left and I didn't speak to him again for 28 years. Um, a year after that, we had moved in with my grandmother and I blocked much of that out until recently. Um, Growing up in that house, I remember being on a very strict schedule
Mhm,
from the early morning, about five, maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, till about 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. I was locked in my room, and my mom was off doing whatever. She was trying to get a medical certificate to work in the hospital, and I was left home alone
mhm,
because the babysitter was always trying to cause problems, allegedly. And well, yeah, I was pretty skinny at the time,
mhm.
and my mom liked to. She was very good at dismissing people or dismissing people's concerns. And, when I would talk about missing my dad, it did turn into a fight between her and the babysitter, and she stopped taking me there.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you too about the neglect. Was there any other memories that you had about being neglected? Like being stuck in your room for 4 hours is a good example of abuse and neglect, but what else?
So, I have foot sensitivity now because I wasn't allowed to use the bathroom. I was literally locked in my room, no food, no water, and no bathroom. And I would mess the floor. I'm just a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember it got crunchy after a while, so I don't like crunchy things on my feet.
Mhm,
Because I remember having to walk in that and try to, figure out what I'm doing. And then she would come home and open the door and she would see, and it was World War III for little old me. I was about 5 years old when that happened, 5, 6 years old,
mhm,
when that started. Um, she would take me to my grandmother, and I don't have the album anymore, but my grandmother would document. She took pictures of me and how skinny I was when I would go to her house for a couple days. And she always talked about how hungry I was. And,
mhm,
but at that time, I was already told, if you open your mouth, you're a liar. So I couldn't even tell my grandmother at that
yeah.
age what was going on. And that was normal for me.
And the fear too
Hmm.
of telling her and then still having to go home. There's like two dynamics for you where you may say something and then never be able to go back home, and that's terrifying, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then or you may have to go home and endure whatever your mom was
I
going
did.
through.
I did. My mother had me conditioned very young to not open my mouth because anything I said, I was a liar. I had too active of an imagination and I was too busy looking for attention. Um, So she was able to dismiss that to a lot of people, but not the people that lived closest to us in our little complex.
Mhm.
Um, and then when we finally moved in with my grandmother, um, she had triangulated me and my grandmother to where we couldn't really have a relationship. I butted heads with that woman until Alzheimer's started coming in
Mhm.
when I was in my teens. And I mean, I'm telling you, I locked horns with my grandmother for
Yeah.
years as a child because she wouldn't tell me where my dad was. She wouldn't tell me where my brother was. She was trying to make me into this porcelain doll version that had wanted her daughter, my mother, to be.
Yeah.
And I fought with that dynamic, and then I was fighting with my mom. I was trying to get her approval. I fought tooth and nail for my mother's approval. From the time I was about 7, when I started kindergarten to when I graduated.
What did her approval mean to you?
It meant that I could approach her and talk to her. It meant that I wouldn't get slapped. It meant that I would get a solid meal, new clothes, fresh clothes on my back. It meant that the house was quiet.
Mhm.
My grandmother had a mausoleum to my grandfather, and she had stuffed my mom into one room, me in another, and the dynamic of the household, if my mother was home, if her door was shut, you didn't approach. If her door was open and she was in it, you had to knock, announce yourself, and request permission to speak. And if she was actually out of her room sitting watching TV with us, you could approach her willingly and talk to her and actually talk to her. But you still had to request to speak to her because, she made sure I was seen, not heard, and I knew proper etiquette, was what I was always told.
Yeah. And then tell me about maybe how that's impacted. Can you take me to the now?
So now, I do have severe social anxiety, which I combat every day working in customer service.
Yeah.
Um, I I have a huge problem when somebody calls me by my name. Every time I was called by my name, I always in trouble. If I was just referred, "Hey, what's up? Hey, can you do that?" "Okay, I'm good. I'm Cherry." But now I have severe anxiety. If ever somebody calls me into the office and I know I haven't done anything wrong, it doesn't matter. It could be, "Hey, do you want to go get pizza?" It doesn't matter. It sends my anxiety through the roof.
Mhm.
And I really have to ground it down as I'm okay. Like I'm not in trouble. Um,
Mhm.
and that does impact me. I don't like making phone calls. I had some anxiety coming on today because I don't like talking to people I don't know.
Yeah, I get it, especially about something so personal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I also avoid people as much as I possibly can. I don't like being called the adultier adult in my friend group, but I have been because when my friends call, they know that I've got most of the answers, and I'm over here like, I'm pulling this out of my butt. I don't know what you're talking about.
But you figured it out. And a lot of times when we're in spaces, like when you're younger and you earn love by being performative or achieving things, it's like this overcompensation of going above and beyond pretty much. So,
Yeah, that was school for me was that exactly. In fact, I suffered in elementary school a little bit because I am extremely nearsighted. And when I
mhm.
would tell my mother I need to get my eyes looked at because the school nurse would tell me I need to get my eyes looked at, my
Yeah.
mom would brush me off. She's like, "There's nothing wrong with them. You can see just fine." Obviously, because you know you can find all the toys in the store that you want that you supposedly can't see or some whatever nonsense she would tell me. And my fourth grade teacher actually threatened to call child services on my mother because my grades were suffering. I couldn't see the board, and I
Yeah.
was sitting in the back. I could not see it. There was nothing. And once she took me to the ophthalmologist, she said to me, "Well, once he proves that you're just lying and looking for attention, you're going to get it when you get home." So when she told her, "Oh yeah, she needs classes like yesterday," she
Mhm.
falling all over herself in public, falling all over herself. She was, worshiping the ground this man walked on. But then as soon as we got home and I got those nasty big old aviator 80s glasses that I wasn't allowed to pick,
Mhm.
your my investment better mean something. And it did. My grades shot through the roof, and then I was an honor student through the rest of my, schooling career.
Mhm.
But it shouldn't have come to my tiny little fourth grade teacher threatening to be like, no, you need to take care of your daughter.
Yeah. So other
Uh,
people saw the neglect as well. And sometimes people stepped in, and other times it sounds like people didn't because you were never like taken away from her.
no, I actually ran away twice from her when I was a kid. And when the police would interview me, like, what's going on, I got so scared telling them what was going on with her. My grandmother wasn't that bad between the two. She really wasn't. Um, but I was terrified to tell them what was going on. And I asked them, can you find my daddy? And
Mhm.
my mom fabricated this story that, oh, he's a child rapist. He's got schizophrenia. He's got this. He's got that. And that shaped me as well, because that was early in my schooling. And I'm like, no, he's not. Like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
But if I challenged it, if I questioned it, no, there was no, you did not backtalk. You did not question. You didn't even question. You were grateful for everything that you had. And if you were ungrateful, you got punished. So that
Yeah.
whole incident in school where I got my glasses, all of a sudden I can see. And I remember I was looking at my mom. I was like, oh, it's so nice to see. I'm glad, thank you for allowing me to see, basically, is what I said to her.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I knew someday you would need glasses because I needed them. And I'm like, been telling you this for how long now?
Yeah. So then it became back to her. She knew it. It's something she figured out. She's walking, this guy's walking on water,
Mm.
right? Talking about it. So I'm glad you got what you needed at that stage, but I also can see how painful it would be to have to suffer through some of that, especially when you can't see, can't get better grades, and are having to live with the consequences of something that you can't control.
Yeah, she would force me to study every day, which is fine. I grew up to be a astute student anyway, but she would grade, she or my grandmother would grade my assignments before I turned them in, and they would like write down on another piece of paper what I got wrong, what I needed to correct, why it was wrong, whatever. And then I would get berated. Well, you're so stupid. You haven't figured this out, by her. My grandmother was a lot nicer about it, but she would criticize my handwriting, which I learned cursive very young
Hmm.
because of her. And I'm kosher with that. But yeah, it's like, I don't know what you want me to study. I don't know how to do this because I couldn't see it. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And then I would get berated for that. And it was just this cycle all around, all
Hmm.
around. And I got good at flubbing it, and once I figured out math, basically self-taught at that point,
Hmm.
everything was fine. But it was a battle. I don't know how to do this. I'm 10 years old, and there's this math problem that I couldn't see how my teacher did it. I tried to follow along in the book, but it's not the same thing.
Hmm.
And oh no, I was lazy. Oh yeah, cheers to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember anything else that you were told that you were like in that space? Obviously, you're trying so hard, so you're not lazy, but you were told you were. What else?
So when I was about 8, we went to Disneyland. That was one of our big things. It was one of the only places my mom didn't actually get on my case a whole lot. And there was a doll that I saw that I wanted. And when it came to Santa Claus, there was a form letter I basically had to fill out and recite. And please, Mother, may I have more, type thing.
Hmm.
And so that Christmas, I was real excited because there was a box. And I was like, it's my doll. It's the doll. I
Hmm.
open it. And it was actually a villain. It was Maleficent. And I, of course, by that time, I was trained that I am showing surprise. I am very thrilled. I'm very excited, grateful. I was just nuked that
Yeah.
moment. And so it was one of those moments that I actually had the gall to look at my mom and I said, why Maleficent? Just great choice, mom, great choice. But
Right.
why? Because she matches your personality.
How did you interpret that then?
I remember thinking about the things Maleficent was as an 8-year-old. Like, she's scary, she's mean. Like, I didn't really understand Sleeping Beauty at that time.
Mhm.
I just knew it as a cool story. And I'm like, I knew she was kind of selfish and kind of mean. And I'm like, am I selfish and mean? Like, I asked her that. And she said, yeah, you're one of the most selfish children I've ever had. Like, that doesn't math. Math ain't math.
Right.
And my grandmother had bought it for me because she bought herself the Evil Queen. So she wanted us to be twinsies.
Mhm.
But my mother was, well, she matches your personality. And I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So as a kid, that was the last time I asked for anything for Christmas, was that year. In fact, I never asked my mother for anything again after
Mhm.
that, because I'm like, no, whatever she gives me, it's got to be good enough, because she knows what she's doing. I'm just a kid.
So then you started to shrink. And then it's just like,
Mhm.
you know what, forget wants and needs. I'm not going to get what I want or need. So then can you tell me from that point of realization what happened with like other things?
So I was trying to be in her good graces when I was about 9. I was teased mercilessly because my mother was a heavy woman. She was pushing about 450, 550 when I was in second or third grade. And I was teased. I mean, all the kids I went to school with, they had these rock star model moms. I mean, there was a couple of chubby ones here and there, but nothing like my mother stood out. She was the only one that wasn't a man. Um, and I remember I was defending her. I was defending her to these bullies. Like, no, that's my mom. I mean, she works in the hospital. She's great. I couldn't really pinpoint great things that she did for me, but I was trying. I was working tooth and nail. And they reduced me to tears, basically. And so at the end of the day, she picked me up from school and I was crying. I told her what happened. And when we got home, she shoved me into my room and she put me in timeout for being ashamed of her, when all I did was tell her I was trying to defend you. And so then she'd put me there for about 10, 20 minutes.
Mhm.
She came back and she's like, have you thought about what you did? And I looked at her. I was like, I don't know what I did wrong, Mom. Like, I was trying to defend you. These people are hurting my feelings. And what did I do wrong? I was just aren't I supposed to tell you what goes on at school? And she said, well, I know you're ashamed of me. It's fine. I never imagined you'd be so ungrateful to have me. And she went on this tirade and she just totally neglected everything that I said to her. And she put me in timeout for another 2 hours after that. And I went to bed without supper. Classic. Because my grandma was out of town at the time.
Mhm.
And when my grandmother got back, she was livid because she's like, no, you don't do that to her. Like, no, no. Because she was trying to mediate between me and Mom, and that never worked. But she tried, so she
Yeah.
gave me a
Well, that
cookie.
triangulation is like early seeds. It's just like everybody's trying to keep the peace. So it's very difficult. But one of the things I see is sometimes your grandmother stepped in, but it doesn't seem like she ever did enough to get you out of the situation.
She threatened multiple times to throw my mom out. But my mom always tossed back, well, I have custody of her. I'll take her away from you. And my grandmother never fought that. She didn't really know how. She was still in her mourning. She was a very old fashioned lady. The men handled everything. So she was navigating, making through her golden years as a widow by herself.
Yeah.
And I was a pawn in all this, because if I got into her good graces, and allegedly my mom would get her inheritance that she thought she was due.
Mhm.
And that never happened. My grandmother, she wasn't wealthy, she wasn't poor, she was happy in the middle where she liked to be. But they would fight. And she'd be, you don't treat your daughter like this. And my mom, she's my daughter. I can do whatever I want with her, and you can't say anything about it.
Mhm.
And so the second time I ran away, my grandmother didn't. She was worried. She was scared to death, but she wasn't. She was like, "Bye, if you can fly, little bird, fly."
Yeah.
But no, she really couldn't do much of anything. She had her own demons that she was fighting all the time. And then, of course, I was pretty headstrong. I mean, on that regard, I am my mother's daughter, but
Mhm.
um, I just didn't get along with her. Because she wouldn't tell me what was going on. She wouldn't validate that I was missing my dad. She hated my father, and so any characteristics I had of his, which allegedly I did,
Mhm.
my grandmother would step in and try to beat out of me so that I'd be more appealing for my mother to take care of me better. So it was this. I had to navigate quite a bit to
Yeah. Was
make it
the
out.
resent that your dad left, or was it their relationship?
My father was viewed as lazy. He has severe epilepsy and heart conditions, so it's hard for him to work a lot,
Mhm.
especially standing jobs. So he was always trying to get help, like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" And my mother had convinced my grandmother that he was a lazy no good, he wasn't working, he wasn't doing anything. And then that translated for me when I would ask about him that I wanted to learn the ways of being lazy. I wanted to, be just like him. And, oh, you're being like that to be like your father to hurt me. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? So my mother had cut off my father from help from her parents.
Mhm.
And because he virtually has no family, he had no support system. And so the resentment was that he abandoned his family, he abandoned us. And so my grandmother held on to that, and my mother, who had held on to a grudge for 60 plus years, really held on to that
Mhm.
piece. And it was always used as, oh, well, he didn't love you. He walked out on you. Obviously, he didn't love you. And I'm like, ouch, thanks.
Yeah. But you, of course, as a kid, you're always remembering your parent as good. So while she's implanting some of the things that she was saying negatively about him, they weren't things that you had memory of experiencing, right? Okay. And you did describe being just like your mom and it backfiring. Can you tell me what that dynamic was like? And like, when did you start questioning her influence?
So I started questioning her influence actually when I was in boot camp. I went into the Marine Corps July 25th, 2011. And I had seen some of similarities. My mother was very iron-fisted, very militaristic, but I was also in marching band in my high school years, and so I knew how to I could squeak by under the radar
Yeah.
as much as possible. But it was actually one of my drill instructors that she reminded me of my mom, but she more like what my mom could have been like. She's very strong. She was very independent. You didn't mess with her. I mean, she's, a drill instructor for the United States Marine Corps. And she was beautiful. She, took care of herself, but her presence was very commanding. And she reminded me of my mom's presence. It was like the first time in real life I encountered somebody that had the same kind of aura and just in the room. I'm loud, I'm proud, but in a positive manner that I
Mhm.
experienced. And so when I would write home, my grandma would write back to me, but my mom, she would just, whatever, But my mom actually came to my graduation, and I remember seeing them side by side. And it was like this little bookmark I left for myself because I've only processed this really recently, but I started seeing what I could be versus what I was trained to be as a child. And that was also the first time I'd like to note that my mom actually genuinely said she was proud of me when I crossed the parade deck. And my drill instructors looked at her up one side and down the other, and they're like, "Really?"
Mhm.
And I did have a drill instructor that I hated, but you're supposed to have at least one you hate.
Yeah.
And she offered to help me carry my stuff from the barracks to the car. But I was back under my mom's spell. I've got to do this. I've got to figure it out. I've got to carry this weight. It's my stuff. I need to figure it out. And I did. And I feel really bad because if I had asked for help and
Mhm.
taken that help or whatever, it would have been so different from my mom, who expected me to do everything on my own. She did everything on her own. So therefore, I have to do it on my own. But if I had accepted the help, it would have started breaking that bond a lot more. I didn't actually start breaking that off and actually ask for help until last year.
How what so from then you said 2011 you went in, or is that the year you graduated?
That's the year I went in and graduated. I went
Okay.
in July, I graduated October, and then I was discharged from the military in 2014.
Mhm. Was there anything specifically, like just on a pause, that you wanted to say more about the military part?
Um, so as far as the military, I really do feel like in many ways I was set up for failure, not by the military,
Mhm.
but by my mom, because I wasn't allowed to have friends growing up. I wasn't allowed to socialize growing up except for approved things like Girl Scouts, 4-H, etc. So I didn't know how to talk to my peers. I know how to talk to adults. I could have an adult conversation with a full-grown adult at the tender age of 6 or 7.
Mhm.
But I couldn't connect to my peers. I couldn't connect to I understood chain of command really well, and I could talk to my uppers in my chain of command, but I could not work well with others. And it's not because I didn't want to, is I didn't know how. I couldn't trust anybody in my peer group. So that led to being alone, ostracizing myself. I stayed in my barracks room, I stayed in my house. Um, I had a baby out of wedlock, so that of course added that pressure on an enlisted Marine. And of course, my mother was involved, and then I had my grandmother who had Alzheimer's, and I had all these layers, and I didn't know how to ask for help. So when my mentor came in my life in the Marine Corps, he was like the big brother I never had. He would listen to me. He actually knew more about my mom's story, about what she was doing, and when he would work with me during duty, we would sit and talk, and he would listen to my story, and he would try to guide me to see what it was that was going on. So when my son was born, he was born December 1st. My mentor died of an aneurysm 4 days later. And it was sudden, it was out of the blue. And it was when I say I felt like my command turned its back on me and forgot about me, that was my mother saying, because she told me, "Oh, no one's going to care about you now," and because they're doing their thing, they're a unit, they have a job to do.
Yeah.
Carrying my ass and babying me was not on the agenda. I had to figure it out for myself. That's kind of how it is. But she turned me away from my command internally, so I couldn't trust them. I need to trust my mom. I need to trust what she's saying. And that led to me getting really worse in my depression. I gained a lot of weight. I had surgery, so I had problems with my leg. I had problems with my weight. And so my command, not actually seeing what was going on, they sent me to therapy, but I didn't know how to talk to the therapist because I was scared at that point. I was so
Yeah.
scared. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was always in trouble. I was accused of child neglect, even though that was actually, come to find out, my mother calling the daycare saying that I was neglecting my son. I found the records and I was like, are you kidding me? I was in Japan. And
Mhm.
6,000 miles didn't make a difference. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess my mom's right. I guess, I had, so I fell back in line, and then I got out, and then I was back to being her little her puppy.
Yeah. That sounded so lonely to be in a space where like the world keeps moving on, but you've had something really major happen where you need the world to stop for a second so you can even sort the feelings out. And it doesn't work that way. So I see how the end of the military kind of happened for you, because it was
Yeah.
like the person, this sounded like the only person who ever understood what was actually happening. And he didn't have to have a front row seat. He just knew this mentor, right?
Yeah, he
That
did.
was a devastating loss.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a really good man. He was lactose intolerant, and he would buy the cheesiest pizza for our discussions because I was like 8 months pregnant. And that was the first time I had somebody take care of me and see me. I didn't recognize it at the time, but I remember I knew I could go to him if I needed anything. It didn't matter
Yeah.
our rank. It didn't matter. He was supposed to be there for me. And it was the first time. And one of the only times. There were a few other Marines that took care of me, that helped me through a lot, and I'm not discrediting them.
Yeah.
But my leadership, as far as my leadership, he was it. And his death was sudden, and it did hit the unit pretty hard, but not as hard as it hit me. I worked directly under him, and he was amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens too when there's abandonment, whether it's your brother getting dropped off or your dad leaving, is that your mom becomes this constant where, regardless of how she shows up, how great or how horrible, right, she's still there. So when she's saying somebody doesn't care about you, look at how they did this, it's so easy to feel like, they don't care about me because she's your example of love.
Yeah. And that held true through I was in a very bad marriage, that we wound up living with her under the same roof. And to my ex-husband, I get it, man, I'm sorry, I get it. I don't talk to him, but I fully get it. I was the only one that could actually talk to my mom, and it wasn't until I started working at this job that I had for a while that I started getting something of a backbone against her.
Yeah.
And we would spar. We sparred a lot in our later years. And when I finally moved out into my home I'm in now, and with my wonderful husband, and my son is happy and healthy and all this, we're under a good roof. She would still try to weasel in, or she would try to get us over there, or she would command these performances. She took us to Disneyland a couple years ago, but it was her show. It was at warp speed. Oh, we're going to be on this side. We're going to go to this side. We got to be somewhere at this time. Oh, you want to see that character? Oh, well, that sucks for you. We'll see it at another time. We got to go over here. And to me, that was normal. That was my entire childhood. She commanded everything. She dictated everything. Everything was under her control. So last year when her arm broke, that was the first time I saw fear in her eyes, when her arm broke.
Can you tell me a little more about like what happened?
So she woke me up at 6:30 in the morning, and if my mother called at 6:30 in the morning, it's because she had a truck problem that I needed to solve, or her gate was broken, so I needed to solve it, or her dog escaped and I had to drive 20 minutes out that way to go find the dog.
Mhm.
So when she calls me, and I'm like, I remember I looked at my husband and I said, "Oh, I wonder which one it is today." We're taking bets, and we did. We had a pool. Okay. And she's calling and she's crying. I've never seen this woman cry. I've never seen her shed a tear. I have never seen her anywhere near distressed. I've seen her scared, not distressed. And I don't know she's like, well, I just feel like my elbow fell apart. And I was like, what? I mean, this is 6:30 in the morning. I'm not even had my coffee yet. What? So we jump in the truck, we go over there, and sure as, she's sitting there, she's holding her arm, she's crying, she's in pain. She was trying to lift a flake of alfalfa, which, if you don't know how much that weighs, a simple flake weighs anywhere between a pound to 3 pounds, depending on how big the bale you pull it from. So for something, this particular alfalfa bale, the flake she pulled was about half a pound. And she was trying to pull it, and her arm broke. So we had to take her to the hospital. I remember we were trying to load her up in my truck. Like, Mom, we'll support you. We'll get you in. Boy, it's faster if we take you. And she was like, oh, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And she was pretty heavy at the time. She had lost about half her weight, but she was still pretty heavy, and she was scared. She was imbalanced and all. Okay, we'll call an ambulance and we'll get you up there. So we did. And we found out later that day, that she had bone cancer that had eaten her humerus to the point where a half pound of alfalfa snapped it.
Mhm.
And then she was scheduled for the cancer center for August 6th. And this was June 25th. She had to wait a month and some change to go see a doctor, which, okay. That meant my happy butt went over there 2 to 3 to 4 times a day, feeding, cleaning, feeding her animals, changing her. She would not lift a finger, really. She was scared. She really was. She felt it in her bones, quite literally. And when it came time to take her back to the hospital, she was blacking out. She was having these problems. She was scared. I kept telling her, let's take you to the hospital. Oh, they're just going to send me home. no, they know that we have a situation. We need to get you to the hospital. She wouldn't do it. She would not let me do it. And I wasn't her power of attorney, so I wasn't going to force anything.
Yeah.
I didn't want nothing to do with that. And she finally went back, and we found out that she had uh, her renal cancer from 12 years prior had come back with a vengeance. It metastasized to bone cancer. She had cancer in every major organ in her body, up to and including her brain. And 2/3 of her spine was gone. So how she was walking is still a miracle to me.
Uh-huh.
And so when it came time, and the doctor said, "Well, we'll give you some morphine. You're going to be in hospice." My mother looked him. I'm dead serious. She looked him in the eye and she said, "Okay." And she looked at me. I'm still rooted in the spot. Cancer? Like, we knew it was cancer, but all of her?
Yeah.
And she looked at me and said, "Huh, everything's yours now." I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. Hold on. I have to process this real quick before you. But that was her. There was no such thing as processing. There was no such thing as any of that. When my uncle died in 2008, and she dropped it on me as soon as I walked in the door. "Oh, your uncle died," and I started to cry. She told me to shut up because it didn't matter. So I'm standing there next to her bedside, remembering that. I don't know how she wants me to react. I mean,
Yeah.
we were shocked, but I was like, do I show the shock?
Right.
Do I stand here rooted? I remember the oncology team looked at me and they're like, Marine Corps, I had a Marine Corps hat on, like, and that solves a lot of my problems.
Yeah.
But it's like, I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to talk to her. I was like, what do you want me to do? I need input. And she just was like, whatever. Okay, bye. I'm like,
Like it was nothing at all in that. I can only imagine the conflict that was happening there at that time for you.
he said one of the last things he said that night was, well, I didn't expect to go out this way. And I remember I looked at, well, what way did you expect to go, Mom? Like, how, what kind of a comment is that?
Yeah.
Like, what? And so I was like, so, I'm sitting here, I'm taking notes because she's like, "Oh, I need this, I need this, I need that, I need these people to come see me. I want these people." Do not call my sister. I called her sister. Um,
Yeah.
all these things. And I'm sitting here like, "Mom, you were just told that you're gonna die, and all you have to tell me is I am the only one. I am the only person that you can bequeath anything to. So
Uh-huh.
I know this. We're cherry. We got this. Can you talk to me as my mother?"
Yeah. Did she
And she
ever?
wouldn't.
Yeah, I was wondering, did she ever show any empathy in any space? Like not even in being told you're dying, was there any empathy
No,
anywhere else ever that
no,
you saw?
no. I got sexually assaulted when I was 18, and it was my fault. The abortion I had after that, which was medically necessary, that was my fault. She wouldn't talk to me for months. And the only time that broke, when that silence broke, was
Uh-huh.
because I met a guy from West Point, and he was on the equestrian team. And my mother, who was a self-proclaimed horsewoman, she had more Breyer horses than actual real horses. I'm just saying. Um, that oh, maybe he could help us get horses. That's all she. That was it. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that in years until recently, and I thought about that, and I was like, if I acted like that towards him, it's no wonder he don't talk to me.
Mhm.
But I was trying to be like her, but it dawned on me all these little things that my mom did, that the way she talked to me, the way she raised me, came out of my mouth in some way, shape, or form, and that's why I don't have a community that I should
Yeah,
have.
you're having to work through what you've adopted as like communication and socialization.
I can give a real quick example. When I was a teenager and I wanted to experiment, I wanted to wear makeup, I wanted to do the things,
Uh-huh.
I was 15 years old. I was a freshman in high school, and there was this girl, I'm gonna call her Jay. I haven't spoken to her since we graduated, and that's fine. But she wore real heavy eye makeup. She would, the real heavy, grungy 90s eyeliner kind of, she was rocking it. I thought she looked cool. I didn't have a problem with that. I
Mhm.
wanted to know how she did it. I'm still trying to figure that out. But my mom saw her. Like, my mom, like, I guess I introduced them or they saw each other somehow. And my mother told me, she said, "You'll do that girl a big favor if you tell her her eyes look like two burn holes in a saddle blanket." Now, I will own all of the crap that I have said to people via my mother because I made the choice to say it. And I did tell that girl that.
Mhm.
I genuinely thought my mom was trying to help her. And that got me kicked out of the friend group so fast it made my head spin. And I
Yeah.
did apologize to her later in high school, but that moment right there, I'm scared to try makeup. I do wear it periodically, very little, and baby steps. But anything feminine outside of wearing my hair down
Mhm.
I was considered a hooker, red light district material. You go to school for your education. You don't go to school to talk to friends, make friends, go to dances, anything like that. And by this time, my
Mhm.
grandma and I had stopped button heads. Her dementia was still in the early stages, but she wasn't the mean old witch that I knew her to be. She was my friend. She'd take me shopping. We'd go have fun, ditch mom wherever it was that she was at, and we would go do our thing. And she gave me an allowance, which also really pissed my mom off. And I bought a dress for school, a dance. It was a very modest, very pretty dress. I loved it. It was it was the first piece of feminine clothing I ever bought for myself.
Wow.
And I remember I showed it to my mom because my date's mom was there to try to color coordinate for him.
Mhm. That's okay.
In front of this woman wearing this dress, I'm very excited. I'm like, "Oh, look at this. Isn't this pretty?" My mom sat there and looked at me and square in the eye and said, "You look like a whore. You need to take that off." Total pin drop
Yeah.
at that moment. My grandmother was horrified. I was embarrassed because my date's mom already didn't like me.
Mhm.
And looking back I see why I look like my mother. But I was like, did you just say that to me in front of it's usually in the past she would tell me that after. Oh, no, not that day.
Right in
No.
front of her.
I was
And
17. I was old enough to take it. Yep.
yeah, and that I did want to back up because you said something about like even what happened with the essay being your fault. Was that what you were told or is that what you believe?
That's what I was told. Um, and I know that situation because I was in that situation. I know what happened. And there is an extent of it. I did put myself in that situation. But at that time, I was so emotionally starved that having any attention at that point was better than nothing.
Mhm.
Straight nothing. I mean, I was kicked out of all my friends groups because I was toxic. I really was. I didn't know how to handle relationships. When things got heavy, big emotions happened. I had no support. I had nobody to talk to. My
Yeah.
grandmother was too sick. She was living in the 1940s. So of course, it's big. It's you tell him that you love him. And he's already told you, back off. And I'm like, what do I do? And I didn't.
Yeah.
And of course, my mother, she thought, oh, it's high school drama. I want nothing to do with it. So that was no help. So basically, whatever I saw, whatever I was allowed to see on TV, my life experience up until that point, and what little input I got from people that I thought cared about me, ended in disaster. And it was a disastrous situation that I had to pay for emotionally.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, I get it, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
But
that is the thing. We learn our social skills from what we experience and who's around us. So if you're dealing with somebody who is bullying, then you learn to bully. That's why, like, as a therapist, anytime we see kids bullying, we know something's happening at home because it's not a natural reaction for kids. So, like, you talked about becoming a bully and like How do you look back on that version of you now?
Right now, my son himself is experiencing some bullying, and it has helped me to be able to understand where he's at emotionally, to connect with him on that level. And now, as an adult looking back on everything, I know it's not my fault. I know I made a lot of bad decisions. I know I made a lot of bad choices, but I really do look at that part of myself, the person that my mom warned me against to not become, you don't do this, you don't do that. That's exactly what I became. And that wasn't fair to me. I wasn't allowed to express myself. I wasn't allowed to figure out who I am on my own terms. It's taken having my mom die for me to, oh, I don't like doing that. That's not what I like. I'm not really a horse person. I like horses, they're cool, but they're really not for me. I like my feet on the ground, I like to, I am allowed to be an artist. I'm allowed to make music. I'm allowed to do what I want to do without the criticism. I mean, one major thing that I can really tell you that has changed is I am journaling now.
Mhm.
At 8 7 8 years old, my mother told me if I ever had a diary, she would find it, and once I was done with it, I would read it aloud to her or she would read it because I was not allowed my privacy. Children do not warrant privacy. They don't have any right to their own thoughts. And this will also screen you for mental disorders because of your father. So I never journaled. I never did that. I was terrified to. And I've been recommended by therapists. I have a master's degree in behavioral science. I recommend journaling. So now I am actually taking my own medicine and journaling. I've done it for a month now. It's
All
kind of a
right.
big deal. Kind of a big deal for me because I still don't feel safe journaling in my private space at home. Not
Yeah.
because of any situation, but literally at home, I never felt safe. So I
Yeah.
journal at work. And I work with my husband, and he goes and he sees me doing what I'm doing, and he supports it. And I'm like, one of these days I'll do it here. It's fine.
Yeah, I love that you said that because I'm always like, anything you write in your journal is like the seed that you plant for your future self. And it really helps to see patterns. Like we're talking about things that became patterns, right? And I think that if you have a journal, a lot of times you save yourself a little bit of heartache sometimes because you have something to say, oh, yeah, that's right. That didn't work for me. Or it's like a reminder that something did work. Like if we go back to the situation that you were talking about with this guy, the chasing him, the right, he's saying, leave me alone. And you're like, I don't know. It becomes this thing where we see a pattern there because your mom starved you of affection. So then it was easier to fall in love with or like people who starved you of affection because that was the standard for love. So the whole purpose of this is pretty much that. It's like just having a bad parent or somebody who did something wrong or abuse. It's not just that. It is also everything that happens after every relationship, every friendship, right? You've had to
Everything.
undo this whole thing. Like you're telling me, like, I was toxic. And it's like now you've undone some of this stuff, but you didn't have an example. So you had to go out on a quest of how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not been easy. I did leave a toxic work environment. And it's funny because the toxicity between the people that I was dealing with and my mother, that's why they never got along because they saw each other, they recognized each other. And I was unfortunately caught in the middle. That was my life story. I was caught in the middle of the feud between her sister and herself that ended. Finally, I have a relationship with this aunt now,
Mhm.
finally. And I don't talk to those people, but I do feel bad for some of the things that I did because I do have a mouth on me and I'm not afraid to use it. But at the same time, they kind of asked for it by pushing my buttons because I'm trying to navigate where I am, who I am, what I want, how I want to live my life. And these people are trying to pull me away from that just like my mom did. And it felt like home and it was twisted and it was complicated and I hated it. And it
Mhm.
was like, I hated my life for the longest time because it's just been this fight. What do I like? What do I not like? What am I okay with this? Yes, I'm okay with that. I'm going to stay away from that. It's hard. I should have learned this crap 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not now. And now I've
Yeah.
got to navigate with my son and his feelings and he's dealing with the truth about his grandmother, and we're working on it together because it comes out, everything comes out. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching him and I'm like, I see that child. I see that me in him, what damage my mom did do. And I'm like, we're going to pull this out because it's almost like these little cactus spines. You can't see them, but you can feel them. And I'm trying to, help pull them out for myself, for him, together. As I'm telling him, look, I understand, Tom. You need, we'll work on it. We got you. I got you.
Yeah. So you
And
support him though. So he's
I do.
learning that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because she did a number on him too that I recognized last year, year before, in the last few years. And I'm like, no. We were getting ready to pull him from her control. She would pick him up from school for me,
Mhm.
and I'd go pick him up, no big deal. And it worked for a while, but then she started really hammering how she wanted him to be, what she wanted to see in him. And we were talking about, okay, this is the last year we're going to have her pick him up from school. We'll just figure it out. Lo and behold, that happened for us.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't recommend this kind of exit for a parent. I don't recommend pain for death anywhere. I just don't. That's not me. But
Yeah, but you had planned that, like, to start
Mhm.
backing her out of it, and I think that's the part about no contact, it's or low contact. When people get to the space where they wanna do it, they're like, "I can't take this." It's not the, "I'll hurt her really badly if I remove her." It's like, I don't want my son learning these things because they
No,
don't
like,
feel right.
well, and he's got we suspect he's on the autistic spectrum a little bit. And my late uncle was severely autistic, but he was also mechanically inclined. My son is
Mhm,
mechanically inclined, which I love. I love seeing this in him. But when he gets stressed, when he gets overly stressed, he starts messing his drawers.
mhm,
And it has taken compassionate empathy from me to him. Hey, I know what you're feeling, but when you have this, there are things we can do to help you stay clean. Okay.
yeah,
My mother, on the other hand, she took to beating him, which I didn't know about until I found her journal post mortem.
mhm,
And I'm like, the cycle started all over again. And it's just been, for me, it's been, oh, wait a minute. Like, not only trying to move forward, trying to get through everything, but also rolling back the tape and looking at everything through that lens. Oh, no crap. So for me, it's been damage control and letting him know he's valid in his feelings. And if you can't identify it, let's sit and identify it together. I've got the books. I could literally go and get a job if I wanted to, but I'm so messed up right now that I'm like, I'm not going to go and take on clients until I am ready to do so.
mhm,
And so what together we just go through these little things. Do you feel this way? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, let's do hot and cold. We do a lot of hot and cold.
mhm,
And that really helps me identify where he's at. And I look at the situation, I've looked back on how I felt, and I tell him about it and we talk about it. And that's more than I ever got from I never got that from my mother. If
mhm,
somebody bullied me, oh well, figure it out. If I got in trouble at school, well, I'm going to get in trouble at home. If I lost a hair
mhm.
ribbon, I would be held back to dig through the sand to find a stupid hair ribbon. That's how crazy this was. I mean,
Yeah,
but I had to be responsible, and there's a level of accountability that we are expected to learn as children.
mhm,
But it's also up to us to hold our parents accountable because he held me accountable yesterday. Our house is a mess. Guess what? I need to clean it. So I told him, I was like, you need to clean your room. I know I need to clean
mhm,
the house, but I'm teaching you accountability, being responsible for yourself.
yeah.
I am responsible for myself. I'm working on it.
Well, you not only had to learn how to undo everything that you learned that was like the baseline of how to be, then you had to learn the right way to do it. And I keep reiterating that you didn't have an example of how to do that.
No.
But you have figured it out. I always say sometimes it's just as simple as doing the opposite. Like instead of yelling, it might be whispering, or, you're in an argument, so you hold hands. It's like something else, right?
Hmm.
Than what you're used to. Because what you're used to feels familiar, but it doesn't always feel good.
No, no, and it has been hard to even Christmas last year was weird. We had no family out here. Everybody's scattered to the winds. But my mom always came over for Christmas and it was weird. Like
Hmm.
I realized in high def, I wasn't hearing criticism
Hmm.
about my house. Like my house is livable. Okay. I
Okay.
live like a human. Okay.
I hear you.
I have my little nests here. I clean them out and then they stop. It is what it is. But there was no criticism about the state of my kitchen, which is organized chaos. I know where everything is. I'm the only one in there. That's all that matters.
Hmm.
There was, well, this wasn't wrapped right. This wasn't done right. The food's dry. Or she would take credit if I made supper,
Hmm.
like Thanksgiving meal or Christmas meal or whatever meal. Didn't matter if I put in the work. She took the credit because it was her recipe, even though it wasn't. I never followed it. It always
Right, but
came
it
out
was
better.
hers that she gave, like
Yeah.
she gave you the recipe. So whether you followed it or not, if it came out good, she got the praise for it.
Yep.
I
Even e-
seeing
even
shrinking. And in this conversation that you and I are having, I just keep seeing shrinking in ways that it's like when you're performative, you let somebody take the credit too, because you're just like, Whatever, it's not worth the fight, right? But then you
it's
never
not.
get seen.
No. No, my school um honors. I went to the first annual chess championship for girls in 2006 and I placed 31st out of like 200 girls. And that was also my mom's, oh, my daughter's so smart. I taught her that. She wouldn't play chess with me. She would never play chess with me. My brother always taught, he always tried to teach me, but he cheated. I'm like, we can undo this, mom. Like, I
Mhm,
can teach you how to play. We can play. She never did it. She refused to play chess because she didn't like that I knew something she didn't. It's also
mhm,
why I was in the band because my grandmother, she was an artist and a singer. My mom was an artist and livestock. And then me, I chose the band because neither one of them could criticize me on how to play my instrument. Nobody could tell me how to do things because I couldn't go into art. I couldn't go into choir. I couldn't do any of that because they were experts. They were experts on everything. My grandmother, yeah, she was an expert. She was trained by the best. My mother,
mhm.
no. Mm-mm. I can still hear her singing Cher, and it's not lovely. I wouldn't recommend it.
I was wondering if there was also anything that she's ever said to you that, like, you're still trying to undo.
Um, the biggest thing that I hear is that she always used to tell me, "You only think you're good, but you're untrained. You need to be trained before you think you're good." And that was what she applied to art. She applied that. I mean, she had me do everything from painting to macrame to sewing. It did not matter if I placed in the fair, which I did repeatedly for years. It was never good enough, or it wasn't to her standards. She For example, the little 1-inch figures that you see some people have and they're painted, she
Mhm,
would boast that she could paint 1-inch tall figures. She couldn't. She couldn't paint worth a crap. I took some brushes the other day and I painted one of those figures and it came out almost perfect. I have
mhm,
no training. I don't know what I'm doing. And it came out and a guy came and bought it. I'm like, cool.
mhm.
I guess I can do it, mother dear. Sorry, but I can.
Yeah.
And but I still hear her. I hear her criticizing when I cook something. I hear her criticizing when I'm doing chores. I hear whenever I start a new fiber project, whether it's crochet, knitting, embroidery, you name it. Oh, you're never going to finish it. Yes, it does take me 10 years to finish something, but you know what? I have
Yeah.
ADHD and I get bored and I want to do something else. And then I come back to it and there's nothing wrong. I was shamed for putting something away because I would get tired of it and I'd want to do something else, but
Yeah.
I always would go back to it. It took me about 3 years to finish basic embroidery on a pillowcase. Guess what? I finished it.
Yeah.
I just would get distracted, or I would wanna read, or I would wanna do this, or I would wanna play outside and be a kid. I mean, heaven forbid. And so I hear that, well, yeah, you might be starting. It's a good start, but you're not gonna finish.
Right.
Yeah.
So that rings in your head. And it's funny because now we're like, ride the hyperfixations out. So like, you sew for 3 months or 6, and then you put it down for 2 years, and then you just non-shamefully move back to it whenever the
Mhm.
hyperfixation comes back. Like, it doesn't become a failure. But that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people were told. Like, if you start something, you have to finish it, and if you don't finish it, it's a fail. But it's actually a hobby or skill. So, like, at any point you've learned, I can come back to it and it'd be okay, but there was shame in
There
that.
was. And when it came to starting projects at school, when it came to things with deadlines, I had to have everything done the day it was assigned as per
Mhm,
my household because, oh, I procrastinate. And yes, I drag my heels. I drag my heels on a lot of things. Guess what? A lot of people do. I mean, my grandmother was notoriously 15 minutes late to everything her entire
mhm,
life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like me, I give myself enough grace that if I haven't done the dishes today, as long as I rinse them off and wash them tomorrow, I'll be fine. It's going to be okay. If
yes.
I did just do something, like get out of this 30-year slump that I've been in because I was under this I wasn't allowed to play. I would get board games for Christmas, but who do I play with? Nobody would play with me.
Mhm,
And I'm like, what's the point? It says 2 to 5 okay, I guess it's just gonna be me, myself, and I then, and that
mhm,
I would get in trouble for not sharing. It's so undoing all of that. I hear all these arguments in my head. It doesn't matter if I'm reorganizing or cleaning a room. It doesn't matter if I am answering the phone at work. I hear these little arguments in my head. I would have
mhm,
arguments with myself preparing to go ask my mother for something so I could try to, mitigate any loopholes that there might be. And just so I could
yeah,
make sure that I'm not wasting her time. I don't get yelled at for it, but I get my point across. And that never worked, but I tried.
mhm.
And I taught myself to do that, and I do it now.
Yeah, but we become resourceful because you're learning everything through manipulation, gaslighting, that kind of thing. So, like, in return, we learn to manipulate. That's why I'm like, some of these characteristics that we learn have to be unlearned. It doesn't mean you won't use it for good and be like, okay, well, you clean your room and I'll clean the house and we'll do it together, whatever. But at the same time, it's like you have to learn a new way to do things. So you're constantly reparenting. And one of the things that I saw as you're talking about your story is that every time your mom entered back into the picture, you were back into that childlike state, whatever age that was, right? So in the
Yeah.
military, when uh uh, the essay happened, everything it's always getting back to that phase of childhood. But now you're reparenting. So now you're like, this is just a bad thought. I can put this down and pick it up. Is there anything else that really stands out that you're like, I'm reparenting and now I can think about this different?
The biggest thing that I had, the hardest transition I ever had in my life was coming back to civilian life. And when I came back topside, the house I grew up in was up for sale. It actually had sold by the time we landed in the States. And I came back to my hometown and I had to go to this unfamiliar part of town in a trailer that I paid for, this piece of crap little trailer that I paid for.
Mhm,
And I was responsible for somehow, but I wasn't allowed to get a job. I wasn't allowed to find childcare. She wouldn't help me with my son, which that's fine. I'm not saying that grandparents need to take care of their kids. I'm
mhm,
saying in starting to work and start to get money, I needed help and she wouldn't help me. And the transition from going from one life to another to one that was unfamiliar, I didn't know where I was. Well, I knew where I was, but I didn't recognize it. And
yeah,
then I wasn't allowed to go to my childhood home and go through everything for the estate sale. I had 6 hours to load everything she wanted. Everything I wanted that I grabbed was sheer miracle that I was able to have the time to get it. So when I came back, it was reinforced that what I wanted didn't matter. What I
Mhm.
needed emotionally, physically, mentally did not matter. I was to be back to the little slave. She saw a perfectly trained Marine who takes orders, and she started barking orders at me like she was some master sergeant. And we actually did get into it at least one time. That's the story I'm getting at is
Mhm.
she came home from work and she screamed at me. She cussed me out for being lazy, for whatever. And I said, what do you expect me to do? I'm trying to get a job, but I'm trying to get something that works for my situation that you're not helping me with. I had no money. I had some savings that had been depleted because I was responsible for the rent and the gas
Mhm.
and my phone and my child's needs. And I had no income. And so she wanted me to get on welfare. And I was raised as a child, you don't do that. If you can get a job, you don't need it. And I was trying to get a job. But she wanted me to take the easy way so I could be the housekeeper and the whatever it was that she needed emotionally. And we shook that little trailer like we were screaming so bad. The landlord 2 blocks over had to come over and see that we were okay because it
Mhm.
that was the first time I grew my horns and we locked horns. And we locked horns about that for a decade. And we would compromise a little bit, but it was
Mhm.
always she was up here and I was down here. I would do what she asked me to do, nothing more, nothing less. If I needed to do something, I got it done, and then we were kinda copacetic for a few years, and then it went digital.
Yeah. But it's even then, like, even if you qualified for help, you're just taught not to ask for help, not to get help. It's almost like you have to suffer through something, and that becomes the standard.
She told me repeatedly from the time I was 7 years old to the day that she died that I hadn't suffered enough, that losing watching my own mother die wasn't enough.
Mhm.
That was the last thing she said to me before she died. I went and saw her. I had brought my friends and her sister to come see her, their family to us. And of
Mhm.
course, her sister, duh. I mean, come on, they're the last siblings. And my mom was mad at me, and whatever, okay, but she didn't expressly tell me, no, it's not. My aunt can get in her car and drive down here anytime she wants.
Yeah.
You know, I had no say over that, but I was
Yeah.
punished for it. In her dying breath, I was being punished for taking care of her, for making sure she got what she needed, for doing everything she asked of me, and it still wasn't enough. I didn't suffer enough. And I'm like, "You're the only parent I have, and you're dying, and this is what you say to me? Excuse me?"
Yeah. What have you
And,
done with that now? Tell me about that.
um, that moment, I actually told that moment in a letter. I wrote it in a
Mhm.
letter, that to screw off, when I went and disposed of most of her ashes, in one of her favorite parts of the state. And
Mhm.
I wrote a letter to her talking about how you don't get to decide what suffering is for me. You don't. I understand most of her life. She had her own problems, and I'm not saying she didn't. She did. She had a lot going on, but she took it out on me, and that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I was her child. She was supposed to protect me. She was supposed to guide me, teach me. Instead, it was figure it out. And some things you should figure out. I'm not gonna lie, but it, I had to become a mother to learn how to love someone, to really love someone. And through guiding my son through all of this stuff, I have started to learn to love myself. I have hated and resented myself for 32 years. This is the
Mhm.
first year that I'm actually loving myself enough, taking care of myself for the first time, not to get her gratification or approval, but to be happy.
Yeah. If you had it all to do over, now that you know what you know about the end of life for her, would you have made any decisions differently?
No, no.
Mhm.
I, I've been asked that before. If I had gone no contact, if I had made that decision, if I had done something different. I was already a bitter person just like her. I was angry. I was the mentally unstable veteran. I'm not combat related, but I still had my military issues. I
Yeah.
still had a lot of things. But in her death, the way that it was, still being that loyal child, showing her grace when she really, in many opinions, didn't deserve it, has released me from any regret, any what ifs. I handled it with the best of my ability, with the resources that I had. I
Mhm.
figured it out. It was all me. And do I wish that she had gone in such a painful way? No, I don't. She's still my mom. I mean, she's still my pin trading buddy. I mean, we still had our things, but at the same time, she also didn't get herself checked out. That's not my fault.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're able to say that because a lot of times they make it feel like everything's your fault. So now
I,
you're released of any shame or guilt in that. It's like I did not do this to her.
I told her when she started having issues, she started having pain in her arm, like she just couldn't lift things anymore. And she thought she had pulled a tendon, and that's how she described it. And I believe her, I really do.
Yeah.
But I told her, I was like, you need to go get seen. You need to go get seen. Go get that looked at. It's been like 2 months now. You should be healed from that by now. Go get that looked at. And she just
Hmm.
dismissed it like, oh no, I don't need it. And it's like, I understand nothing, there was nothing that could be done to prolong her life. I fully know that from everything the doctors told me, the x-rays, etc.
Hmm.
And if we had found it sooner, I would be in a world of hurt because of the $10,000 hospice bill that would come per month.
Hmm.
But at the same time, everything happened probably in the way that it should have. And I watched her go. It wasn't my fault. She was in good hands with the doctors. She was in good hands at hospice. It wasn't, I didn't come home to find her dead.
Yeah, it was
And
like you did what you could, all that could possibly be done. And she
everything
was
except move in.
still angry. At the end, she still took it out on you. So I can see why you wouldn't change the ending because it would change literally everything else. Now you
What
don't have to carry the shame and guilt of her having passed away and wondered, did she love me? Did she care about me? Did she change? Now you know that she kind of always was who she was.
I only found one piece in her massive pile of paperwork that even remotely suggested that she was proud of me, that she loved me. And that was a letter that she had written to one of her many boyfriends, that she talked about how she was jealous that I was a strong woman, that I was going on in the world and doing great things. This was when I was in the military. And she wanted to go into the military, but she couldn't. She had a hearing problem. So she was jealous of that, and she used to threaten me with military school when I was a kid. And I was like, yeah, right. Grandma's not gonna let you do that.
And you head on went into the military. It's funny because you were kind of like somebody like that had to shrink because you're like, I gotta just make sure things are okay and I'm safe. And there was also this like rebellious thing that happened to you where you were like, I'm gonna go do this then. And I'm gonna take chances with band, right? I'm joined the
Yeah,
military. Wow.
yeah. The biggest rebellion I had that my mom could do nothing about was get my tattoos. I
Hmm.
was raised by, I have a wonderful cousin. I love her to pieces. She's the best thing in the world, and I hope she hears this because I love her. But she was the goth rebel. I mean, she did the tats, she did the black hair, the big makeup, and she still does, and I love her for it. And but she was the black sheep. Oh, you don't want to be like that. You get tattoos, you get piercings, you do makeup. You're just going to be one of them. You're going to be barefoot and pregnant someday. And so I came home with two tattoos from Okinawa that are my permanent souvenirs.
Uh-huh.
And my mom had to deal with it.
I know she was. pissed.
She was. Oh, she was pissed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but you were finding your safety then. You're out of the house, and so I can see how that happened. And then also, you've reconnected with your father after 28 years, and I really wanted to know what that experience has been like.
So, um, it's actually kind of a funny story. So, I recently got some validation with another situation that we won't go into, but I was kind of riding on that validation high a little bit. And so I decided to go on Facebook and look him up and add him on Facebook. Within 2 minutes, he accepted my friend request and we started talking. And we talked for approximately 56 hours straight,
Mhm.
naps included.
Mhm.
um, and I learned the truth. I learned so much about what happened. I remembered a lot of things. And we've been talking about different events that we remembered that we can remember. And it's like, so that wasn't a fever dream. I really did experience that.
Mhm.
Or I remember hearing pots and pans being thrown and my mom screaming, and it wasn't her screaming in fear, she was screaming in rage. And
Mhm.
he would be cowered somewhere, or he would try to avoid. She couldn't throw worth a crap. I mean, that's just the truth. But still, the point is, like, I remembered that. I remembered hearing the screaming down the stairs. We lived in a little townhouse. I remembered the few times he would take me and my brother to IHOP, which I love IHOP,
Mhm.
and I'm sad they don't have my pancakes anymore because that's what he would get me. He would get me these strawberry pancakes, and so when I was growing up, I had that thread when I would go out with my father figure. He was my next door neighbor. He was the only father I had. He would take me out to eat, and I would always get strawberry pancakes, and I was like, I'm not a huge fan of strawberries, but it's comforting to me,
Yeah.
and I never understood why until my dad told me that, and we talked back and forth, and he told me some things about my mother I can't unsee, and that's fine. I will point on the doll where it hurt me another day, but, like, she couldn't cook. We bonded over the fact she would make this chili that just no, it salt had more flavor. And she thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it was not, and we bonded
Mhm.
over certain things, and he would ask me questions, and I would answer to the best of my knowledge, and then I would turn around, and I'd be like, "Okay, so I was told that you were schizophrenic." He's like,
Mhm.
"No, I'll send you my medical record. You wanna see it? I'll send it to you." He's like, "My epilepsy is mostly resolved." He's like, "I still have a heart condition, but I'm perfect." And he had perfectly strung together, coherent sentences.
Yeah.
Not illiterate, not anything like that. And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Okay." So, and then the emotional stuff that we share some similarities with that, where we like to be in a quiet place to process, and that might mean not talking to somebody for a while.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was conditioned to do that as a kid. No, it's actually a personality trait from my father.
Wow.
And so we've been writing letters. We haven't had a phone call conversation yet because he can't really sit up for too long to talk, but
Mhm.
um, it's very cautious, very tentative. We're still kind of eyeing each other. It's been almost 30 years since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
But he told me that he had told me some of the truth when I was little, and told me that I was strong, and to remember that I'm strong and I will get through this and we will come back together again someday. So that reconnection happened 3 days before Mother's Day this year.
Mm.
And so when we reconnected, that pivot and reanalyzing everything in my life, he has
Yeah.
validated a lot of my feelings. I have validated him in return. They're like, "No, you're not crazy. She really did do that."
Mhm.
Um, And it's we're still cautious of each other. In fact, my aunt is still believes that he's a piece of crap, which I leave her alone. We don't talk about my mom or anything like that. We just have our
Yeah.
relationship. We go about our day. She told me to be cautious of him. I do take her advice with a grain of salt because I do know what she went through. But I also know that if I told her the truth, it might crush her more than I want to, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So And then my brother, he passed away last year as well.
Mhm.
So I had to tell my dad that. And I remember my mom sitting in my truck the day she broke her arm. She's like, "Oh, I never know. I don't ever want to know what happens to Mark." And I'm like, if I was a parent, I would want to know what happened to my child.
Yeah, it validated what you found. Because sometimes somebody tells you something, they have such an influence in childhood that you can't even believe what you see. So you find these records and it's like, this didn't add up to somebody graciously loving my brother and taking him in. It felt like he was placed there, left burdened almost, like burden the woman for her to have taken him and then to find out that she didn't even want to know what happened
No,
at the end of it. It doesn't add up to a loving
no.
situation where you had to give up your son, right? And I know everybody handles it differently, so I don't really want
Oh,
to judge it,
yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, it always keeps feeling like validation that what
Well,
you see, you can believe.
that and as a child, I visited my brother a handful of times. I could put him on one hand how many times I visited him after that.
Mhm.
And the one thing that always stuck out to me was my mother had to surprise Dee Dee to visit my brother. If she called to set up an appointment, Dee Dee always found a reason not to. So my mother would show up unannounced on her doorstep with me to see Mark. And then she would want to have a whole parade and dog and pony show and see, oh, I want to, oh, yes, I'm his mother. Yes. I am. Oh, oh, my precious boy. Oh, oh, oh. And she would spend more time talking to Dee Dee or Dee Dee's help than actually interacting. Like, you could still touch him, you could still interact with him, you could still be there. She wouldn't do that. She would give him a kiss on the forehead and say, bye, 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 and she'd leave. It
Yeah.
was, and then I wasn't allowed to do anything with him because I was afraid I was going to hurt him. I was told
Mhm.
if I was too rough with him, I was going to hurt him. So I would touch his arms, I'd touch his hands, I'd touch he had a rat tail. And that was, and he knew we were there. He didn't know who we were, but he knew we were there.
Yeah.
But for my mother she did that consistently. She would show up, and I thought that was weird. Oh, yeah, it's because Dee Dee tried to go no contact with my mother once the adoption was done.
Yeah, I can imagine why. Even your dad was like writing to your brother that like your mom is tumultuous, she's not just not a good person.
No. To put it lightly.
And I wanted to back up too because I love your handle and I won't give it away here. But one of the things is that I keep seeing Disney, Disney, Disney. What is this Disney stuff about? I know that you had like relief during your time at Disney because it was the least amount of abuse you probably suffered. But how did it impact you?
So, real quick, I am generation number 4 at Disneyland as a Disney adult. My great grandparents started it in 1955, so I've got a long history of love for Disney.
Mhm.
Disneyland was always my mom's safest place. She was a happy, like, I could actually genuinely see how happy she was to be there. So, yes, on the one hand, it meant I'm not going to get in as much trouble. I'm going to have a
Yeah.
party. My mom and grandma didn't fight as much. I was still dictated what to do as a child, and parents know best, and I had to do what they said, and that meant going warp speed, but I thought that was normal.
Mhm.
And so in these last several months, I've been looking back and I've been talking to my husband and my son because we went in 23 with my mom. She paid for it, surprisingly. And it was her show. Everything was about her. It was what she wanted. For me, it was normal. Oh, yes. Thank you, mother. Thank you for,
Yeah.
doing this for us. Excuse me.
Mhm.
But for my husband and my son, it was their first time. And they were rushed through everything. For me to hear that Disneyland is boring from my child, like, broke my heart, and I was like, "Wait a minute, whoa, we need to talk about this," and so that's when they actually came and talked to me about how my mom made them feel in Disneyland.
Mhm.
Even though they could see she was happy, like, she would have these big, beautiful smiles, she was engaging, she was having fun, she would ride some of the rides, not a whole lot, but some, and she was happy, like, I was like, "That's my mom." I
Mhm.
haven't seen that part of my mom in 20 years. And I was so excited, but I was also scared to death. It was, and
Yeah.
I was her pawn. I was the travel agent. I had to get everything done. Okay, we got to do all this stuff. And meanwhile, I thought it was normal to just zip through, and
Mhm.
never did I take any consideration of my family. And so now this year we're going to rewrite that. We've labeled that year as a high def preview of Disneyland,
Love that.
and we are going to go back and they're going to call the shots. I just did the planning and some of the reservations. I'm an 8 trip veteran. I know what to expect. They're going to call the shots. That is something my mom never did. She never wanted anybody else to have any say in anything. It was always what she wanted.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I want to honor that part of her, the happy, genuine person that she could portray in Disneyland. That's the
Mhm.
person I choose to remember. But now we're going to do it on our own terms.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most liberating It's scary. I am scared to death. We're going in just a couple of weeks. I know when we went in 23, it was in memory of my grandmother. This year we're going in memory of my mother.
Mhm.
And I know it's going to be like Two-Face in Batman. I'm going to be like really, really happy to be there. I'm also going to be like, oh my God, it's my first time. Oh, wait, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
And that's
it's,
the complexity of grief.
yeah, like I miss the Disney adult she was. I
Uh-huh.
don't miss the controlling Disney adult she was. I miss my best friend that we would sit and hunt for crap we didn't need but couldn't afford, but we wanted it anyway.
Mhm.
When it came to Disney, hours would go by without us, her nitpicking about this, her nitpicking about that, complaining about whatever it was I did wrong. The topic of discussion was usually something that pissed her off. But
Mhm.
when it came to Disney, she would tell me stories of things, when she was a child, she would actually open up about her childhood. Granted, it was only Disneyland that I really heard about, but it was something. I didn't know much about my mom when she died. She was a diehard Elvis fan. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Not until I went through her stuff. I knew she liked Cher. I hate Cher, person. No offense to Cher, but I can't stand Cher. And but she loved Cher. But I'm like,
Mhm.
you don't have the half the stuff on on Elvis that you should have for Cher. I mean, well, there's something doesn't mix here. And
Yeah.
Disney, it was the same thing. She saved all these beautiful antiques that I have posted, and it's like I'm grateful to have these. I wish I had known more stories about them.
Mhm.
Where did they come from? When did you get this? What trip was this? So I can put it in our little timeline. I'm the historian for the family. I
Mhm.
don't know where to put anything because she wouldn't tell me. She would tell me the story, but not the when or who was involved.
Yeah. So but what I hear you saying too is like there's all of these holes that are being put back together anyway. Like your dad's filling some of these holes and like the paperwork you're finding is filling the holes. You have these antiques and Elvis stuff and share stuff. And as you do that, a lot of times memories come back too. So I wanted to know what's something you've said to your future self, especially now that you're on the other side of this.
So, um, it's not necessarily something I say to myself, but it's something that I've been practicing and doing. My mother liked to hoard things from her past. She would find it and she would buy it and hoard it. And oh, this brings back memories. This, sparks
Mhm.
memories. I love to collect things just like the next person. But when I started trying to do the same thing where I was trying to collect things from my past, I realized as I have been decluttering as well, um, nearly everything I have from my past is full of painful memories. So I am discarding those entirely.
Mhm.
Things that might be super sentimental, I'll take a picture of so I do remember it, but I don't actually want the physical item.
Yeah.
So the doll in question I mentioned earlier, okay, that I wanted, I
Mhm.
did buy it because it was something I never got. I can remember the love and the excitement of seeing that doll and
Mhm.
wanting that doll and the memories associated with that. versus the doll that I got. I still have it. I love it. It's
Mhm.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm not actively looking for things to hurt me.
I gotcha.
That's something that I am practicing because the mental demons in my head don't want to listen. But if I
Mhm,
do something, I actually actively do it, that deafens them a little bit more for me.
mhm,
And so I've been working on separating the things that mean something to me, that mean positive things for myself, and things that I may want to hand down to my son at some point, which isn't a lot. He is a boy and I'm a girl. But there's all these other things that I held on to because I was told I have to hold on to these because, my mom has all this stuff from the 60s. I no, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I threw away the last piece of that time with my mom and dad under the same roof. I threw that away just the other day, and it was a jewelry box that I was given that doesn't work.
Mhm.
It serves no purpose for me now. And I played with it, and I felt with the velvet lining for nostalgia, and I said, "Okay, I'm done, bye."
Yeah,
And let it go.
I love
And
that you're saying that you're letting some things go because even though this wasn't a no contact situation completely, right? In any regards to now talking to your dad and being there when your mom took her last breath, I think that one of the things is you're still getting closure through release here because you're
yeah,
letting things go. Even things about her that are hard to let go. I see you letting her go every time you learn to parent your son different, and letting go of these items. It's like they meant something at some time, but they don't mean much to me now.
yeah. I mean, there are items that, my grandma was into ceramics, and she would make these ceramic things, and
Mhm.
she convinced my grandmother not to display them because I would break them. I have them now, but I have no memories attached to them. I see the
Right.
pictures in the vintage albums. Oh, holy day, that's cool. That's when she made it. Oh, that's great. But I don't have any memory of it. I have no emotional connection to half of what I had.
Yeah.
And everything that she left behind, I'm not kidding when I say it took one pickup truck and one trailer to bring the stuff that I wanted. I left the rest of it behind. I didn't want it.
Yeah.
I have some things of her that are my mother. They are definitely 100% something my
Mhm.
mother had. And that's okay. One or two items, it's not going to hurt anything, but I don't want to be my mother. It's bad enough I answer the phone and my relations say, "Oh yeah, you sound just like Ellen." And I'm like, don't remind me. Thanks. Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks a lot. And I
Y
do. I look exactly like her down to the T. The only thing that I don't have, just like hers. I have tattoos and piercing, like
Mhm.
same hair color, same eyes, same everything. I'm
Mhm.
also not half the woman, literally, as she was.
Mhm.
I may be chunky, but I am not my mother. And
Yeah.
I do like to tell people, look, I know what she did to you. I hear you, but you're yelling at me about it. It is not going to solve anything because I'm not going to debate like she did. I don't care.
Yeah. You're not taking away anybody else's experience and you're not letting anybody take away yours. And there's nothing wrong with being the best parts of her. And that's one thing that we can take away. It's like when you look like the person you see them all the time, you get to be the best parts of them. You get to be the healed version of them, you know?
Yeah. And, my aunt went low contact in the 90s, and my mom took advantage of that. Oh, well, she's just measuring everybody by a yardstick, but my mom measured everybody by a yardstick too. She measured me by a yardstick for years. And
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't do that to somebody. Like I want to get to know the person before I judge who they are. And that's me.
Mhm.
That's not for the whole world to know. That's for
Yeah.
me. And it's, there's so many missed opportunities that I look back on, and there's nothing I can do about it. And that's something I'm trying to teach my son is there are some things we cannot fix in the past. And I do wish I had gone to my aunt privately and said, "Hey, this is not normal. What's going on? Where's my dad?"
Yeah.
But I was scared to. I was
Mhm.
afraid. And I spent most of my life living in fear. And that's why I have, my best friend anxiety and my other friend social anxiety, and they're my cousins. But
Uh-huh.
I don't have to be that. She lived her life in fear and she ruled her life in fear. And there
Mhm.
was no need for that. There was no need for that.
Yeah. But
I
you
had to
there's
be her parent, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to. I didn't know what to do, and, like, I had to figure it all out. And it's some parents, if they just, "Hey, I just something doesn't seem right. Can you help me?" And include versus dictate or, order. She liked to order me, and it's like, when somebody I am so defiant now, it's like, "You're gonna tell me what to do? Excuse you? Who the heck do you think?" Mm-mm.
Right.
My inner black chick comes out, I swear, and you don't wanna
I
see
hear that.
But it's
You're
like,
put your foot
you're
down.
talking to me like that when I haven't given you any cause to? That drives me insane, but
Yeah.
as a customer service representative, I do have to have a level of decorum, and I
Yeah.
am very good at biting my tongue when I really don't want to, and I will thank my mother for that, but at the same
Mhm.
time, she never taught me how to stand up for myself. I had to learn that on my own. She
Yeah.
always talked about, well, I was always the bigger, better person, but she never showed me how. She just
Yeah.
showed me she was a bully. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I tried that in school and I got squished. So
Mhm.
it's like, it doesn't work. And I realized it didn't work. And so I was like, okay, mama, whatever.
Yeah. And I also wanted to know because you're like I had to become a mother to like learn how to not just love yourself, but like that this could be done different. Like tell me how your definition of family has changed over the years.
So I grew up basically not knowing my family. It was just mom, grandma, and me, and then I'd have a occasional phone call from my cousin, and then when my aunt and uncle moved, we never saw them. They never wrote to us. They never actively reached out to us unless we reached out to them.
Mhm.
So for me, family has always been defined as it's those that you live under the same roof with and you
Mhm.
protect them under any cost. Now my definition is family is whoever shows up, whether it's via a text message, letter, phone call, random Starbucks that my bestie might bring me once in a while. That to me, they're there for you through the hard times, they're there for you for the good times, and
Mhm.
every time in between. And that's what family is. It's not living on this little secluded island
Yeah.
where, we bite everybody's head off that tries to approach. It's, hey, how's it going?
Mhm.
It's being graceful and gracious. It's being everything I was taught to be as a lady from my grandmother,
Mhm.
but it's also, I don't just bring every lost stray puppy into my circle now, as I used to do,
Yeah.
because I was so, wanting people to just interact with me, to just be a normal kid, to be a normal adult. And so I do have my own vetting process as I have learned throughout the years.
Mhm.
But those who show up for me, I've got an old neighbor that I call my little brother. I mean,
Mhm.
he's still my little. We don't talk every day, but when we do talk, we talk, and
Right.
he's been there for me. I've been there for him, and that's to me, he's more of a brother to me than anybody else. And then of course, I got my Marine Corps brothers and sisters that I talk to, and they're
Yeah.
the ones that were there for me. They are my family, and I'm there for them any day they need me. And
Mhm.
I am there for people. I don't mind being there for people, and people are there for me, and that's still a trip.
Yeah. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody who's like, I do not want to cut this off. So I don't want to go no contact. And maybe I don't want to say a similar situation. I don't want to take anything away from you, but a
Everybody's
situation where they
situation is
have to,
different.
yeah, where they
Mm,
have a hard
and
decision to make.
so I will tell you about the time. This was about last March. My husband and I were talking about me going no contact with my mother. And I remember I was sitting there, and I don't know if I just listened to my gut instinct, which I'm starting to do now. Um, but I remember thinking, gosh, I would love to go no contact. I don't want to have to look at my phone and say, ugh, it's my mother.
Hmm.
But for me, the decision laid also within my gut instinct, because
Hmm.
we didn't know at the time how sick my mom was. And I told him, I was like, I am a very loyal person and I'm all she's got. I am it. I am the last kahuna.
Hmm.
And my decision in April, um, we were getting ready. my son was starting to no longer be picked up by my mom from school anymore, so that was a big help. He started taking the bus home. And so it was just me that dealt with her. I would go and I'd help her, I'd do whatever I had to do, but I would also kind of keep her at bay. She would want me to stay there for hours and talk about the same old dead horses to beat on, and I would be like, "Okay." As soon as I had that sense, I cut that off and I said, "No." I would make up whatever excuse I had to. "Oh, I've got something happening. I've got this I've got to do. Sorry, mom, maybe we could talk about it later."
Mhm.
And um, so my advice from my experience, and every experience is unique. Everybody has been beaten emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually in one way or another. Don't even get me started on religious trauma. We won't touch that. Um, my advice is you've got to do what you've got to do. If that means you need to sit privately, make a pro and con list. Okay, my Gilmore girls that know about Rory that make their pro and con list. If you got to make that list, make that list.
Mhm.
And then make your judgment. Or maybe find somebody outside, somebody with no inside knowledge. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a therapist. It could be a pastor, it
Right.
could be a coworker, it could be somebody you trust. Remember, as kids, we had to go find a trusted adult to talk about things. Now it's our time to find that trusted person
Yep.
and be like, "Hey, this is our situation. What do I do?" And then
Mhm.
you have to decide what your boundaries are. My boundaries started with my son. It's pretty sad, and I have apologized to him, and I love him to pieces.
Mhm.
I didn't listen to him when I should have, but now he is learning. I
Yep.
am feeling this way. So if you are feeling that way, listen to it. Listen to yourself.
That's really great advice. So I know that we talked about like there's so much more to this story and I wish we had more time because I had some other questions for you. But one of the things that I did want to say is thank you for sharing your story because everybody is not meant to go no contact. Some of it is just setting boundaries. Some of it is never talking to the person again, you know? And then I see both. I see the grief of people saying, my mom passed away and I never got to say goodbye. And like, I'm so glad that you don't have to carry that burden too. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing. I think it's going to be such an inspiration for people who are trying to decide what they should do or just in a similar situation where they're just like, that's validating for me that this is happening to me, right? I'm really experiencing this and other people feel the same even if everybody around me is not doing anything to change it. So,
Yes, and the last piece that I would give is make
mhm,
sure that if you do go no contact, please make sure that your parents have something of their affairs in order. My mom had no will, she had no funeral direction, she had nothing. If my brother was normal and he was to get
mhm,
everything, that's fine, as long as your parents you have the knowledge that your parents are taken care of. Whether or not you're the executor of the estate, because if you're the oldest and you go no contact, 9 times out of 10, it'll fall on you whether you like it or not,
oh yeah, they'll put
unless
you
it
back
is
in.
specifically put down that it's your brother or your sister or whoever or the aunt or the uncle, or it doesn't matter. Make sure if you go no contact, you don't have any further strings because death comes and it comes fast. It came for me with my mother in
Mhm,
my situation, and I had to pay for everything out of pocket, and that really hurt. So
yeah.
I am happy to have been here to share this story because that is the meat and potatoes. She thought she could beat death.
Yeah.
And you can't. We can't. We
No.
just can't.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.